Welcome to Shh, Tell Me Everything. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Shh, Tell Me Everything. I am Kristy, your host, and I'm really excited for this episode today. We are joined by my good friend, Gary Harker, who really probably, okay, who's listening, Gary? Maybe me, maybe some of our friends. That might be it. So it needs no introduction, but Gary is actually a mentor of mine. He's a partner of mine. He's a friend of mine. He's like this wise old soul that you might find buzzing around in many different areas because you have lots of different skills, but I feel like you always have this like inherent old soul wisdom inside of you that I've always really appreciated. So I'm really excited that Gary's going to be here today. He's got some great things to share with us. But first, Gary, I just want to have you like bring people up to speed a little bit. Like, what are you doing with your life? Like, what do you do? Where are you? You know, give us a little background.
It's a great question. My mom asks me the same question probably every year. She's like, what's going on in your life? What are you doing? What I've been doing for the past, I would say about 8 to 10 years is helping professionals, primarily healthcare professionals, and recognizing where their strong points are and their weak points are, specifically in ensuring that they don't get sued and saving them a ton on taxes through legal strategies. Other things that I've done is do business consultants, financial coaching. So just helping people identify where they're the weakest at and they'll go from there. It's kind of interesting. I took this job because I knew it would let me go into some massage therapy type stuff. It's like complete the wrong direction from everything else that I've done, but it's been really good because I think you have a balance. And so I've had a lot of heavy lifting to do on the work side of it, and I needed to balance it out. And I really wanted to do more holistic things, working with body, physical therapy type stuff. And so I've gravitated to some healing stuff that I did not expect 10 years ago. And so it's just been giving me a very good perspective on life, allowing me to connect with different types of people. So yes, the reason why many people don't know what I do is because if I'm in one realm and they see me in another, they're like, what are you doing? It doesn't make sense to me. How are these pieces fitting together?
So I love it because you'll
Yep.
see Gary. So Gary presents at these conferences all over the nation. He gets up and does expert presentations, speaks primarily to, you know, professionals, a lot of, in the health industry, doctors, surgeons, orthodontists. I mean, this kind of thing. You know, these people that hopefully someone somewhere is making some money. And Gary's teaching them some things that are really helping them to learn how to better manage their financial stuff. Anyway, so he's really smart. He's speaking in front of like hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people. And then I love that he literally not paused, but took like another path right in the middle of all of this career and career success to go to massage therapy school and specifically to go down the path of cranial sacral stuff and wellness stuff. Like it's been really interesting. Like you're such a cool mix, I think, of like being able to, I feel like you could be comfortable in the city or the village, right? You can be here, you could be
Yes.
there. You've got
Yes.
some insight into all the things. But Gary's a super interesting person and a good time. No, what do I say? You want to have a good time, not be a good time. We
Yeah.
have a good time. Okay. We'll move forward because we don't have a lot of time actually
Yeah,
in what we're
you're
trying to
good.
share. So why I've invited Gary here today is I've asked him if he would share with us, pick one thing that really has made all of the difference in some area of your life. And it can be industry specific or it can just be like your life, you know, I mean, like just something that you feel that you've learned, right? That you can now teach me and teach our listeners that kind of helps us jump that curve. Like we don't want to have to learn it the hard way like you did. Teach us something, you know, that still maybe makes all the difference. And we want to hear maybe some perspective about how it got there. I'm really excited to hear what you have to say, to share some part of your secret with us. Like teach us something that has made all of the difference in your life. I can't wait to hear what you have to share. So Gary, tell us everything.
So first up, I'll say when you shared that with me the first time, my mind went racing. I'm like, where am I going to go with this? Right. So I think it really starts with once upon a time, my life got flipped, turned upside down. I was not the Fresh Prince, right? But I did feel like that my whole life. What I thought it really felt like it just was swept away from underneath me. And so I had to look at life again from a different perspective. And I said, what do I want to do? And I had to build a foundation. And it's kind of a different concept, but my concept was I had to live somewhere inside of myself rather than extrinsically. I'm very much an extrovert, so I like to be in different situations and I want to expose myself to different people and just be involved in the crowd. And what that did, it put my self-worth and attachment onto things and people and relationships rather than myself. And so I think if I were to strip it all down and went back to what it was, is I had to go back to the core or the root of what I felt was the biggest constant in my life. And in order to do that, I had to disregard all the things that were external to me. Like I had to disregard the opinions of people. I had to disregard the opinions of my spouse many times. I had to disregard just how I might look in front of others and just say, what, at the end of the day, at my core, what am I? And I had to find out who that person was. And so I had to look internally. And so now my decisions are made off of a constant, and it has high integrity, and it has something that I don't compromise on things. So my compromise is not necessarily on extrinsic things. I don't compromise on things that are internally. So I would say if you were to say, shh, tell me everything, the big thing is I don't compromise on my integrity. That's what I don't compromise on. And all the other things that you go into, like when you build relationships with people, with things, with finances, with business, if you're not compromising on your integrity, you can always make different relationship agreements. That's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with having to shift, especially if a relationship that you do have with someone is not a healthy relationship and you're not living to your with integrity. You have to be willing to say pause. You have to be willing to stop and shift gears. Now, I can tell you from personal experience, that's not the easiest thing. Sometimes it takes a couple of months or years or multiple years in order to get out of that unhealthy relationship. But once you find out what your integrity is and who you are inside, it makes that decision a lot more simplistic. It does make it easier. It makes it more simple. And I would say that the hardest part for that has been because you don't compromise on your integrity and your values, you're compromising a relationship. So that relationship might be broken and you might have to leave that relationship, which it hurts a lot. But at the end of the day, it's for your benefit.
So I'm interested, like when in life did this whole kind of transition path, new lens of thinking come?
So about 8.5 years ago, my wife and I got separated from my own actions, and it was a lack of understanding of who I was as a human, and it was a lack of being able to accept the love that people around me, like my wife, were freely willing to give. And so it was at a point of separation where we were completely broken, and I left my job, and I had been an entrepreneur. I was pretty successful in what I had done previously, and it was just broken. Like I went and started working on a food truck. That's where I was at. I got a wife and 2 kids, a separated wife, 2 kids, and I decided I'm going to leave my job because it was an unhealthy relationship, and I decided to start a food truck. And that's where it started. And I will tell you, during that process, I found out it was a beautiful experience, to be honest with you. Going to get pretty vulnerable. I don't know how many people like vulnerability, but vulnerability for me allows connection. So if you connect with this, great. The vulnerability would be just the fact that I didn't know what I was capable of or who I was. I was living for other people.
Mm-hmm.
And to give you an analogy, I felt like a wet blanket inside of a laundry machine when it was on the spin cycle and was super wet. And that was completely unbalanced, so it was just clanking all over. That's what life felt like for me. And so once I knew who I was, I had to find out, just take a deep breath, meditation, prayer, repentance. It was using the atonement of Jesus Christ to identify who I was. And once I got a pretty good idea who that was and how God saw me, not how I thought myself viewed in this world, but how God saw me, that's what really unlocked a lot of things. Because now when I'm lived true to who I think how I feel God sees me, I'm able to do that. The atonement's taken a completely different perspective on my life. And that's what's allowed me to change. So that might be more than what you asked for, but hey, there you go.
No, that's beautiful and that's real, and it's ringing a lot of bells for me. I don't have the same exact personality as Gary, but Gary and I both We can be really fun. We can be the life of the party. We can be the party. We can turn it on to be extroverts. I consider myself actually pretty much an introvert, but I can be extroverted in certain situations. But I see parallels of things I've experienced of like when everything looks good. I hear a lot of this in Taylor Swift's lyrics too. You know what I mean? With these classic, like a people pleaser, like you're really good at making things look like they're all good. You know what I mean? And things look fine, and like you're creating this life and you're building the things, right? But
Yeah.
what's actually inside, and when you're building the things and they all look fine, that's fine if they're fine. But when they crash, they're not fine, obviously. But it's actually not fine because so much of it is what other people think. And when you really start to value yourself, or I guess you realize that you're valuing yourself based on what other people think, what the world thinks, right? Like not what I think of myself, which ultimately for me too is what God thinks of me, right? Like to me, there's
Hmm.
like the only two people who know who I really am. It's me and God, right? Like
That's right.
nobody else. They can think I'm great. They can think I'm awful. There's people on the spectrum love me and those that hate my guts. The only people that really know me, it's me and God, right?
Right.
Like, so I guess what other people think is, I mean, it's hard to disassociate a little bit and make it not important, especially say like your spouse. Because of course we think, oh no, we care about our spouse. We do. I care about my spouse. Like, but at the end of the day, who really knows me? Me and God. And if I start there with my integrity, I'm right with there, then I might be making a lot of people unhappy with me, with my decisions,
Yeah.
including a spouse, including a friend, including a coworker, including a whoever, like, but to try to remember that for me too, like what Trump said is that who I really, really am. And the only person who knows is me and God, which is wonderful and scary, but mostly wonderful.
Yeah.
It's,
I think the fun part for me was recognizing that if God wants me to be this type of a person and this is who I am, and I go for that, and the person that I'm living with doesn't want me to be that, why do I want to be with that person?
right. And you're going,
And I'm like, nah, maybe. And here's the when I started going in that direction of how God saw me, my wife was even more attracted to me. And I'm like, whoa, okay, cool.
you're like,
Like,
wait a
wait a
minute.
second. Instead of me trying to be someone for her, I can just be me
Yeah.
and she's gonna love me even more than I thought she could if I was trying to be somebody else. I mean, so I like to use this analogy too, like you look at through all the experiences that we have in our life. And if you go back to elementary school, junior high school, grade school, and high school, whatnot, and all of your accomplishments are recognized with these medals and these trophies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look what I've done. And all the shitty things you've done in your life, they internally, they hang up like on the wall. It's
Yep.
like no
Yep.
one else can see them, but they're still on the wall, right?
Mm-hmm.
But none of those define who we are. They are things that we experience in our lives, but that doesn't make us who we are. Look at people who've won. Aaron Rodgers is a great example to me in that respect. Aaron Rodgers, he is a multi MVP for NFL. He's a quarterback with the Packers, now with the Jets. But he said he won a Super Bowl championship, and then afterwards, like it was just like, what happened? I didn't get elevated to like some godlike status. What happened? That's my word, not his words, but it just felt like he was, in his words, and in essence, is like all the joy that he thought he'd have after experiencing something so that he was dreamt of his entire life, it kind of felt empty.
Hmm.
And so I would challenge someone who's gone through some things that are on the exact opposite side of the spectrum. Like you've done the worst thing possible. Like if I've had the chance to go to prison, not me myself, but to visit a prison, right? I've gone into a prison and I've seen the choices that people have made. Those choices don't define who you are. They're things that you've done. And if you were to acknowledge them just like a trophy on a wall and just say, yeah, I mean, how many people stew on the thoughts of that they were once a champion?
Yeah.
Yet we stew on the thoughts of the negative things in our life, and that's usually what drives us back to more and more negativity. So my my challenge, I guess, would be to just accept who you are in a way, not accept your decisions, accept everything that you've done, but just recognize that, yeah, that happened. Cool. But that doesn't make me any less of a person, and that doesn't inhibit me from becoming my best.
Yeah.
I can still, if God still sees me as this amazing human being, I have a choice to either drive in that direction or go in the direction based upon my past experiences? Which path are you going to choose?
It's like the older I get, hopefully I'm getting somewhat more mature. That's the hope, right? We hope we all get a little more mature, a little more wise as we continue than we were, in junior high
You
and
didn't
moving
you didn't
forward.
say maturity doesn't. You're talking to a man. I don't know if men mature very quickly.
Especially not Gary. Oh my gosh, Gary, you're one of my favorite people, but it's like, oh, wherever you take Gary, you just got to know Gary's going to say what Gary's going to say. He's going to be this part of what I love about you. You will be you
Yep.
wherever we go. So
Unapologetically. That's true. There's pros and cons to that. That's true.
It is, you are the same person no matter the crowd, which is good. And I lost my train of thought. Oh, I was thinking about this analogy that I learned in college about like, getting frustrated with ourselves and our mistakes and like, not being good enough or blah, blah, blah. And so it's kind of like, a kid coloring, like picture like 3-year-old or 4-year-old is doing a coloring sheet, right? And it's coloring and then like gets outside the lines and gets so frustrated. And so like crumbles up the paper and like throws it away. Like we're just like that kid coloring. Like the parent isn't like, oh, you're terrible. Yeah, you're awful. You should throw that away and never color again. It's like, no, like the point of coloring was to learn how to color. And you coloring outside of the lines was how you're learning how to color. You know what I mean? Like we think of these things that we do wrong as like, oh no, this is now defining me. When really like, gosh, we're learning, right? Like that's how we're going to learn. Like the only way we're going to learn is by doing stuff. And again, not saying go out and do stupid stuff so that you learn, what not to do, but we all do, to some degree. But to have a little more like grace with ourselves and knowing that like that's how I think God sees us. God's not like, oh, you terrible person, like I can't believe you colored outside the lines. Like, yeah, we're just like children and like we are learning. And
I think he celebrates it, to be honest with you. I think he celebrates when you color outside the lines. He's like, yes, like go for it. Challenge it. Like challenge yourself, make mistakes, hurt, experience the emotions, be human. Like I can't imagine, like I could never imagine God creating a world that and being that if I was God and I created this world like the sandbox for someone to enjoy and they're like, I'm gonna be conservative. I'm gonna go to the beach and never go in the water because then I'll swallow salt water. Yeah. It's like, really? Like go experience some things, do some stupid stuff.
P.S. That is me because I hate salt water, but God, don't make me go in the ocean. I want to be like,
but you also throw amazing 40-year-old birthday parties.
Okay, that too.
You do the things that many people aren't willing to do, right?
Well, and you have to back to kind of what you said too. It's like you have to be able to tolerate other people not liking it and other people looking at you and thinking something else. Because no matter what you do, right? Whether I threw a fabulous 40th birthday party or I did nothing, somebody would look at it and not like me. Somebody would look at it and say, oh, she's so blah, blah, blah. Like that it was going to happen either way, And so when you let go of that and it's like, I can tolerate people not liking me and I can tolerate people thinking that I'm this or I'm that or I'm whatever. Like if I know who I am, and that's where my foundation is, then like it's just easier to tolerate. Like people are always going to hate you. I tell my kids all the time, like so-and-so is mean. Yeah, they're probably always going to be mean or maybe they're not, but like someone's always not going to like you. Like someone's always going to be judging you and saying something about you. We'd like to think not, but no, it will, but if you can tolerate it, man, think of all the things you could do because it wouldn't matter. If it didn't matter what other people thought about you, like, wow, what could you do?
It's true. But so this kind of brings up one of my biggest, it's like the biggest thorn in my side, because if you don't have the resources or the tools to do certain things, it's difficult. My mom, when I would go through difficult times as a kid, my brothers.
And how many brothers? Yeah. You have a lot of brothers. How many brothers?
I have 8 older brothers and they're all amazing. They're great human beings. But my brother just older than me, we used to fight a ton and it would bother me so much. Like he was my biggest bully, was my just older brother. And now we're best friends. But he would do stuff knowing that it would bug me in front of my friends, everything just for the entertainment value. And it was entertainment. It was entertainment. And my mom, I would just whine to my mom like every kid does. Well, not every kid. I was probably a little bit special on that front.
All my kids. I don't know.
All your kids, okay. So I would be like, this is bothering me. And my mom would just say things like, well, don't let it bother you. I'm like, but it does. Well, don't let it. And so I think if you look unpack that even more. It's like the reason why it bothered me is I was looking for extrinsic validation. I didn't know who I was, and how many kids struggle with that. And so if you have children who are struggling with finding out what's going on in their life and they're really going back and forth, and just love them for who they are and let them know that they're as a unique human being in what they are. They're lovable, and that the things around them and the circumstances that they're in, they have to learn to be resilient. That's where the resilience comes in. But yeah, I mean, I think everybody gets to that point where they're not heard or listened or validated, and they feel like their mom or a parent or a brother has been neglecting them at one level or another. So that's part of the healing process. But anyway, those are 2 cents, right?
I like the.
But how have you done it, Kristy? Like when you go through the integrity part, I mean, I think that's what makes us such good business partners is numbers are numbers. It doesn't matter. Effort matches numbers, obviously, but at the same time.
It was so interesting. Do you remember we were having a conversation a few months ago? We had hired a new person for our team, and they'd expressed something to me about like, oh no, if we do that, maybe Gary might feel like he's getting cut out, or there's something like this of like, if we take this step, the other person might feel like we're trying to pull one over on him. And I was like, oh, just like, don't worry. Like, we know we're not doing that. Like, we don't even do that. Like, that's not even anywhere in the vocabulary. It's not weird. We don't have a roadmap for that. It's not an option. Like, neither of us are thinking, oh no, someone might be taking me down or someone might be taking advantage of me. Like,
but it's not even there. That's so common in business.
Yeah.
Like I work with, like when you work with dentist offices.
Because some people are, that's the thing. It's like, you'd like to think, no, it's really actually common for people to be cutthroat or competitive and trying to actually undermine someone. Like,
unfortunately, yes. I used to work for a guy who did not find win situations. It's either I'm winning and you're losing, or you're winning and I'm losing.
Man, like, no. What a narrow way to live. You're going to lose almost all the time. You've already lost.
Like, the game is like the sports game is over. Like you're not in high school anymore. You shouldn't be running a business like you're still in high school.
Yeah.
But hey, whatever. You're the cool kid.
Yeah.
Cool.
When you see like it's just so narrow, like, oh, like.
Yeah. And that's when you look at business coaching and tax coaching and whatnot, that's what you're helping them with. You're trying to help them recognize who they are. If they run the business like they are, who they are, they'll gravitate the right people. And if you're a little bit shady, guess what? You're probably going to hire people that might be a little bit shady. And if you're a good person and you hire someone who's shady, they will weed themselves out pretty quick.
Mm-hmm. They will not be comfortable. What did Taylor Swift again say? You know, the trash takes itself out every time, right? Back to Taylor. Like, like, oh my gosh. It's and the further along I get in business, you also see too, like, and not always, but like circles of people who are my mentors, you know, who are like steps ahead of me, years ahead of me that I'm looking up to. Like, how did you do that? Like, I'm trying to learn from these people. Like the ones that I find that are really successful, like, man, you're finding some really good people with some really good attitudes and some really good mindset. And the others, like, there's not room. You know what I mean? There's not room at that table for people who are small-minded or competitive in the way that, like, it has to be me or you. Like, I can be competitive. I want to produce something awesome. I want to be like the best, but I have room to believe that somebody else can also be awesome, right? Mm-hmm. That actually we could both be awesome. It doesn't have to be your one, you know, one or the other. That is
true.
Is it you or it's me? It reminds me too of, like, we just got a new bishop put into our church, right? Who's like the leader of our local congregation. And in our congregations, they're volunteers. They serve like 5 years at a time, 6 years at a time. And then a new one is called to serve in that position. And the bishop of our congregation was like super laid back, really nice guy. Wonderful. I love him. Just a really down to earth, super great. And then the new bishop coming in is like super young buck, not letter of the law. He's also wonderful, but like a different pace, right? A totally different pace with these two people. And the old bishop going out, you know, he said he was talking to us and saying, you know, when I first was called to be bishop, I was like, this is a bad idea. It's like, don't you know who I am? Like, I should not be the one up here, you know, trying to lead these people, trying to, you know, help them find Jesus. We said, but, you know, I talked to God, and basically God let me know that, you know, you just be you. You just be you and I'll be me. And that'll be enough. So I was like, okay, I don't have to be this idea of this person that could help people, like, no, I can be me and God's God. And so that's okay. So the
Yep.
combination, then I'm going to be fine. And I get to be me. And God even says, you know what? You can be you. Like, you don't have to be just like somebody else. Like, you be you. And if we anchor that, within a higher power, like I believe in God, like, great. That's going to be enough. So I
Yep.
think about that. It's like, you know what? You just be you. You be you. And if we have the right people with us, right? And I consider that God too. Like, we have the right support, right? Then me being me is fine. It's plenty.
Yep. Well, if you go back, making full circle, that center, that end thing that doesn't change, for me, that is God. It's like he's the constant, and I'm just trying to direct towards that constant. And I think what's unique is I've met and worked with people of multiple different religions. It doesn't matter the religion. There's always a higher power. Like Jewish people don't believe that God is a savior. That's fine. But they still have very much values that align with many Christians. It's just a little different belief system. So regardless of how you decide that you want to worship, I think the biggest thing is you're committing to some sort of a religion. I've even found people who are non-religious and that don't have a foundation in God. They're maybe atheist or agnostic, whatever that may be. As long as you have a belief system and you have core values, those are the things that you don't want to change.
Well, it's
For
like
me,
it's this higher power, right? You believe there is something higher
there
than
has
you, even if that higher it's right and wrong. There's something that transcends just me and what I
Yep.
want. There's a greater something.
I have a difficult time with helping people and connecting with people in a way that I can assist them if they don't believe that there's a power greater than them.
Hmm.
So that's kind of one of my non-negotiables when I work with someone. It's not, hey, do you think I'm smarter than you? It's more of, do you feel like there is something that you can learn from this? Or
Yeah.
is there growth for you? And growth comes from a power outside of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And is that growth, is it constant? So I will oftentimes work with people who are, again, of different religions. That makes no difference to me whatsoever. But I will say that having that belief and that core value it makes your values not want to change.
Yeah.
And that's why I admire I admire many Muslims because they're so committed to what they teach, committed to Jews. And I mean, I always like to talk about religion, and then I like to talk politics after that, and then after politics, no,
You're just
just
gonna make
messing with
everybody
you.
mad, right? Like, what else
I
can we
do.
throw in
It's
there,
so
right?
good.
Like,
This like my wife's from Mexico, so I have like
so you're playing
diversity.
that card. P.S. I love
I'm
her. I love Early.
I'm trying to be as diverse. No, I'm just messing with you. So no, I had never dated someone from Mexico before, and so when I met her, one thing I'll tell you about Latin people, they know how to love, and they know how to open up their hearts in ways that I grew up, I never knew that you could experience. So
Yeah.
I'm super grateful to have um, a different
Yeah.
culture in my life. It's challenging, super challenging, but I'll tell you one thing, the depth of what you can learn about each other is there. So I just wanted to share that because I think it's important that it's not, I mean, you and I share a similar religion, if not the same. I believe it's the same.
The
Could be
same, yeah.
changing. It's the same. Yeah.
Well, if
No,
it's always like, yeah.
it's all good. But I think that would be my biggest message is if you are constant, if you rules within a religion are often constant, rules at country clubs are often constant, rules at your office should be constant, rules in your financial life should be constant, tax rules should be constant, but they're run by politicians, so they're never constant. So we have to make sure we follow what those are. And as long as you're constant with yourself and you're consistent, you have high integrity, you're going to have no problems.
I love it. And it makes me think like this. If I know that, like, I know me and God knows me, I'm accountable to somebody, and I don't have to be accountable to you, and I don't have to be accountable to somebody else. But like, I like that in a partner. Like, if I know that you know that somebody's looking at your stuff, and that you ultimately are responsible for your decisions, and that you can't blame. You can only blame so much; it's not going to matter, right?
Right.
If you actually are accountable and responsible with your actions, great. Then I don't have to babysit you or worry about you. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to make a mistake. You will. We're all going to make mistakes. But
Right.
you are going to carry those, right? That's going to be you. And you're going to look at them and grow from them instead of just like turning the blind eye and denying it. Like we want to do like children, right? Like, oh, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. Versus like, oh, it was me. Shoot.
Yeah,
But
it was me. And
I
then
just
God
didn't, yeah.
says, yeah, remember that guy that I sent to you to help pay for those price of those sins and those imperfections and the pain that you feel? Yeah, he'll help you out. Yep.
Man, Gary,
It's a hook a brother up discount.
a hook a
It's
brother
a hook
up.
a brother up discount. Having
We should,
Jesus is the hook a brother up
we
discount.
maybe we should do like every fourth episode Jesus. Although Jesus probably deserves more than every fourth episode. Everybody does. He
But
does, but
hey,
like,
just
but
incorporate
maybe
him a
like
little bit on each one.
just put a little bit in there. But again, like finding value, finding integrity, like for most people of faith, it does come down to that, right? Like that's
Yeah.
the foundation of how you're anchoring to something that is bigger than
Yep.
you and that sees through the junk, sees through the good and the bad that the world would label you with, which none of that matters, good or bad, right? Like seeing straight through that stuff to like what actually is real, right?
Yep.
Who are you really, Gary?
It's
Oh,
me.
man.
I'm just
It's
I'm
you,
pretty
just-
open. Like I
yeah.
know that I cuss a lot, and I know that God has a sense of humor with me, and he also knows how to lay a firm hand and say, okay, that's enough. And usually that comes via my wife, who puts me in line very well. And so it's nice. I like it. I laugh during prayers probably more than anyone else that I know. And we have a good time because I think God has a sense of humor.
He must, Gary. He must. So
He must if he's friends with me.
Right. Well, okay, this was I love it. I did not know where this was gonna take us today. And I really love it. Like it really rang some bells for me too. And I appreciate you being here. Gary, just another I want to turn the time over to you just real quick. How do people connect with you if they want to find you? You offer a lot of different things, but mostly just how do they get in touch?
So I think I don't do a lot of social media, but I am on Facebook, just Gary Harker. I think the easiest way to connect, and I don't like to do it fake. And so if you want to connect with me, just schedule a free 15-minute appointment. You can go to and I don't have a big website. It's just a direct link. You can have any type of consultation. I usually do business or tax. If you just want to chat, that's fine too. But Gary Harker, that's GaryHarker.as.me. So that's it. It's just a link to schedule 15 minutes to hang out. If you want to see if I'm a good person or not, you can listen to this again, or you can go back to my Facebook page, which shows very little, but I'm not a social media butterfly.
Oh my gosh, you could schedule with Gary right now and just be his friend. Here we go.
Yep.
We're just
And it's a free friend. You don't have to be paid to be my friend. You can just be my friend for free.
This is hilarious. Okay. Well, Gary, thank you for joining us today. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And we will see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to an episode of Shh, Tell Me Everything. This podcast is proudly hosted by PackTax and produced by Techne Innovations. We drop new episodes 4 times a month, so be sure to subscribe and never miss out. See you next time, and keep those secrets coming.